and Glo, and this is Ones and O's with Tori and Glo. We're back again for episode 2, where we're going to talk about career transitioning and pivoting into tech. And today we have Vanessa Vun with us. Vanessa is a colleague that I met on LinkedIn, and we had a coffee chat a couple months ago. Vanessa is a front end engineer at SciShield and was previously a laboratory scientist. Her background is really impressive, and I'm really excited to have her here to share her experiences. Vanessa, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vanessa Vun, and I've been at SciShield since June of this year, and actually started my transition, leaving my old career last year in March. So the whole transition took a little over a year, and I'm here to just share some of the ways I've learned during the transition.
Awesome. Again,
Awesome.
really excited to have you here. Watching your success has been extremely inspiring. I've talked to a lot of women that have been trying to make the transition into tech. And today we're going to talk about why it's so important that we talk about career pivoting, career transitioning. First of all, as we know, only 27% of employees in tech are female. And when you look at the engineer ratio, and start breaking down that down by race, it gets even more disproportionate, and the odds are clearly stacked against us. So when I was talking with you, you initially, when we had our conversation, there was definitely a lot of challenges that you were facing, and you had to overcome a lot of those challenges to get here. So that's why I thought it would be so great to have you come on specifically and talk about your experiences. Um, so with that, we'll just kind of jump in right into, you know, what's the first thing that actually got you interested in pivoting your career away from being a laboratory scientist into becoming a front end engineer?
Yeah, we'll go back to the time when I was in middle school. So I was in the Bay Area when I was in middle school and actually went to an arts and technology middle school. So I got to learn computer science in sixth grade, learning C++ and learning how to build my own personal computer. So I was really deeply inspired by tech right from middle school. And unfortunately, I quit around high school because I thought I wasn't smart enough. There was one other girl in the class, and she was getting all the challenges, and I was struggling. So I felt a bit of imposter syndrome. But at that time, I didn't have mentors that would tell me, or like even the teacher, like telling me that I'm doing okay, that I should keep going. So I was really discouraged by how tough computer science was in high
Mm,
school.
yeah.
Um, but I started thinking about going back into tech when I was basically uh, really bored of the career as a
Yeah.
laboratory scientist. I think during the pandemic was when I really did like some soul searching because I had some events, for example, like my uncle passing away, my dad
Mm,
passing away.
I'm
So
so
all of
sorry.
that made me
I'm sorry.
go through that soul searching to really think about my life. Like, do I want to, keep doing a career where I don't feel 100% happy with? And
Yeah.
that was when I decided to just make the jump because I feel like I had the drive, organization, motivation to fully, change career into a career path that is probably the hardest to get into, especially these days.
Wow.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's so inspirational. Thank you. And I love that your story goes back so far in thinking
Hmm.
about, this is what the opportunities that were given to me. Like, is this my path because this is because other people do it? Or is this my path because it really speaks to me? And I'm sorry that you had the experience, with your grandfather passing and your father passing away. And I'm glad that you had this kind of coming together like moment between, is this what I really want to do? And that you seem happier off now. So that's awesome. Congrats.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And I think like I don't know, just thinking about how life is so short kind of is like the kick in the butt to, to inspire me to do what I want to do. And I did think about going back into tech for a long time, but I never had that kick in the butt until those life events, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes when life hits you in that way, it really puts into perspective like what is important in your life. I wonder what when you had that realization, were you thinking about kind of your middle school self and thinking about, well, this is what really empowers me, or what was kind of some of the thoughts running through your head?
Yeah, I realized that when I left computer science in high school, I just went with what my parents wanted me to do, which is like they wanted me to become a doctor. They wanted
Right.
me to be the first doctor of the family.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take on that challenge and do it for them. But after like, even after 2 years being a lab scientist, because I didn't want to be a doctor,
Mhm.
I felt really bored with the career. And then from then on, I tried to transition into other parts of the medical industry,
Mhm.
but it was just not really hitting it with me. Like, I even got a master's degree thinking that I would go into management in medicine, but I was still not interested. But when I started coding again for fun on the side, it gave me a sense of like, wow, I still enjoy this. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
now that I'm older, I have like maybe the capacity to like motivate myself, to encourage myself to keep going, even though computer science is really hard or coding
Yeah.
is really hard.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
love the topics and motivation. Like on a personal note, I love reading about like what drives us to change our behavior and how can we
Mm.
change our environments. And there's like a topic of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So intrinsic, like, is this what I really want to do? Do I have
Mhm.
my own self-discipline? Like, does it evoke something in me? And then extrinsic, like my parents want me to do this, this looks good, I get these grades, whatever it may be. So I think that's really intuitive and awesome that like you were able to form that and then really stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, there's a topic around when you do make a career change, you do speak for yourself. Like you want to feel safe to do so, right? Like, do you feel like there's certain elements in your life that allowed you to, speak with more like I guess like genuine hitting home? Like, was it a mentor or maybe like you met a recruiter and they kind of like opened you up to like, yeah, maybe this could happen.
Hmm. I think when I was going through like this soul searching period of like, should I stay with my career or do I do a total career change, do like a 180? And I actually took a career changing course
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
was from the Bay Area. Yeah, I took like it's expensive, but I wanted to make that investment in myself to
Yeah.
really figure out like what's my personality type, what am I like drawn to. I had to take a lot of I had to write like a worksheet to write down like who am I, like what kind of things in my life that brought me a lot of joy.
Mm.
So I did a lot of like deep work in figuring out like what drives me as a person, and like how to what figure out like who I am and what kind of work can I thrive, or what kind of environment I would thrive in. And through that deep work, I learned that I wanted to be in an environment where it's constantly changing and constantly challenging me. So I learned that being a lab scientist, where the environment is very stable and very slow, that was just not the right environment for me. And that's why I felt so like kind of depressed for a long time, and I didn't know why I felt like trapped at
Yeah.
work. And when I learned that about myself, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
That lab science was not the career for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like the environment and then also the program and just a lot of reflection in your personal life are really what led you to think like, and I love this phrase. Someone told me this once, is I like to audit the things in my life that on a daily basis make me feel more me. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can definitely sense that like that deep reflection allowed you to be very centered in yourself. And then from that sense of dedication, I think things start to form around you naturally that says this is what I'm surrounding myself with. This is what gives me energy, this is what gives me power. And you naturally bring people, other people into your circles that will validate those feelings for you, whereas maybe you were in a place where that wasn't happening before. Is that kind of a good summary of what how your transition happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, naturally being in the Bay Area, I have a few friends that I could reach out to who are developers, so I could ask about their experience.
Okay.
And I also met other women who career transition into tech too,
Oh,
either through self-taught or a boot camp. So I was able to draw or learn from their experience and then develop my own plan into transitioning. So before I even transitioned, I had a plan to make sure that I would be setting myself up for success.
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I really love on your page you wrote a whole FAQ with a visual around like Vanessa's like self-starter method. Like that's really like I think so inspirational for anybody that's trying to make
Yeah.
that, and you've really turned yourself from like the student into the like teacher of kind of this self-starting method. So, yeah, kudos to you, definitely. I think
Mm-hmm.
another topic we wanted to explore was around like what kind of things besides the um, besides having these networking conversations, obviously you also have to kind of show these experiences on your resume. And what sorts of things did you find were most helpful for you when kind of seeking out these experiences and highlighting them on your resume?
Right. One, I think the challenge of trying to transition into tech was to show the employer that I am employable, that I can get started right away. And when I was applying for roles, and most of my experience are just projects, a lot of people have turned me down saying I don't have enough experience, regardless of my previous 10 years of experience as a lab scientist. So I needed to, instead of relying on projects, I relied on trying to get into volunteer work or internships. And that was uh, the biggest changer for me, that really had a lot of employers reach out to me when I applied. So I actually got an unpaid internship and volunteer work through Code for America,
Mm-hmm.
and those two experiences gave me the meat of my
Mm-hmm.
developer resume,
Mm-hmm.
and so I am able to talk about what I learned through those experiences
Mm-hmm.
in my interviews. So
Yeah.
I had some some experience to talk about, which I can't really use or do when I'm just talking about coding projects that
Mm-hmm.
I did on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That I know it's especially hard, and I hear this from a lot of women to show, because there's women that are in a little different circumstance where they have like 10 years of experience in an industry that might be adjacent to tech, or it's not tech at all, it's sales, it's marketing. But we have salespeople in tech, we have marketing people in tech. So I feel like when you're coming in with almost, not totally zero, but you know transferable experience that maybe you can't use on your resume, that's even more difficult, where you have to say, well, look, I've been investing so much in myself that I've taken on unpaid internships, been put all this free work into projects, but it is paying off. You were just talking about your website and how you basically completely hand wrote and hand coded every single aspect of your personal marketing website. That just goes to show how much effort you put into it. And I guess the other reason is on the flip side, if you're a recruiter, if you're an employer looking at this person, specifically this woman coming into tech from an outside field, it's like, don't just judge the book by the cover. Don't just judge the
Mm-hmm.
resume by like, oh yeah, I've got you know, they don't have any you know, paid professional experience, but they're doing all this work on themselves. For me, that speaks volumes than, you know, next to the candidate that may, you know, have had this traditional experience. Like, this is a person who's ready to come on, grind, and like, you know, just prove themselves. So that's really what I hear from your story, is that sense that you're willing and ready to prove yourself, and you'd have. Absolutely. Um so um
I would say to add to that too is like when I'm hearing about the recruiters, it's not only years of experience, but titles. So many people, because the people that are often recruiting technically are, they don't know the ins and outs, fully of a position. They're just kind of handed what it's supposed to be, the description. So without having that full context, they look for, have they had this title? Have they had this? And it, either a human won't pick it up or an ATS, like an automated resume scanning system won't. But we could get into that a different time in terms of like how to beat the ATS system that isn't always on our side. But I think that's awesome that you were able to advocate yourself in your story and be like, yeah, I've had this experience and it's not the title. However, let me show you how this is actually transferable and how having different external sort of skills and experiences will help you in the long run, because you can't have this like homogenous, group of employees. Like Glo was saying, it actually makes teams much stronger to have those different viewpoints. So yeah, I think that's a real
Mm-hmm.
strength. It's hard to do. It's hard to convey.
Yeah, when I create my resume, I try to just show what I can do. Um, like I think people are not good at selling themselves, but like I was so desperate to break into tech that I was trying to sell myself so hard. Like I networked, I spruced up my LinkedIn, I did my portfolio, I tried a hackathon, I did everything
Awesome.
I could. Yeah, and then I just put it all in the resume and just hope that the resume or that the hiring manager or the recruiter would pick up those keywords I put in there to show that I'm worthy to be interviewed.
Yeah, and on your
yeah.
resume, or on your website too, like I notice you have a lot of really strong action words. When people, not say like assisted with, and I'm totally guilty of it, like earlier in my career of like helped out with the development of versus like wrote the code, or like led
Yeah.
this, like because of those spaces that make us feel unsafe, or kind of like a little sheepish to, like you said, like really sell yourself, and it reflects in your website.
Absolutely.
Go
um
us.
well, I have absolutely loved this conversation. I want to wrap
Mhm.
this up with one last question, and it may be a very obvious question, but I really want to give our viewers like the real context of like why we're here. This is all through the lens of women in tech. It is harder for us to transition. It's harder for us, even if we have prior experience, just to land a job and get those interviews. So I just want to hear from your perspective, Vanessa. Do you feel that your, um, you know, gender as a woman, you know, had a role to play in, you know, the challenges that you went through?
um, I think so. But I think it's because I focus mainly on trying to sell myself like really hard. I feel like I beat out maybe a lot of men. So I'm constantly thinking about my gender in interviews and applications. And if I was turned down, I was thinking, well, is it because like of my skill or is it because of my gender? And sometimes I even wonder like, am I the gender hire of my current company?
Yeah.
Because like I'm the only woman in the team.
Yeah.
But the great thing is my team is very supportive of me, so they're mentoring me
Yeah.
really well. So I hope that my team would also hire another woman, so I'd
Yeah.
feel more comfortable. But I just accepted that this is what my experience will be in tech probably forever, or maybe not for long, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I'm so glad that you were here to share your experiences today, and I'm so glad to have met you. Like, I think you said one key thing is that you are currently the only female on your team. I'm the only female in my, I manage men, I work directly with men. Great relationship with them. They're extremely supportive, but it's so different when we come together as women because, 90% of the time it's what do I want to say? It's just normal operating, right? We're doing whatever conditions that we've already ingrained in ourselves. We're masking, um we're doing our work, but a lot of those behaviors, it's almost like it's like 10 layers deep in our psyche. Because we're like in
Oh yeah.
survival mode at that point. So
Oh yeah.
sometimes
Hmm.
if you ask us, like, well, yeah, do you think it's harder because of our gender? It's like, well, duh, but like, is it easy for us to pinpoint exactly where and why? Like, no, especially nowadays. But I do think it will continue to get better. I'm so happy at how much support we've all been receiving individually and then collectively as part of this podcast, as part of this network that we're trying to build. And yeah, I'm just so amazed at your success, Vanessa. And I hope that every day you're proud of yourself because you kick ass. So thank you for joining. Yeah.
Oh, I had one question that just popped
Yes.
up in my brain
Sorry.
before we wrap up. Oh no, there is no sorry. We're expressing, we're enjoying a safe, awesome space where like-minded women can just, like you said, sell yourself, like just say the truth. Like, yeah, I am an awesome engineer and there's nothing to be sorry about.
Hmm.
um, but so I'm curious, Vanessa, what is the difference you found in between and interviews, right? Which is like a two-way street. Like you're interviewing a company to see if they're a good fit for you and genuine, and then they're also interviewing you for to fulfill that role, right? But how did you discern or kind of find the difference between companies that, like you said, are maybe hiring because of gender or didn't feel interested, and then companies that there may not have been a lot of women but they were supportive, like you said, my team is supportive. Like, what does that look like, being genuinely supportive to you?
Yeah.
Honestly, in interviews, I really can't tell. I mean, because the company that you're applying to can say the like politically correct
Yeah.
uh, answer. And so the only way for me to find out if the culture that I'm going into is, supportive is to actually experience it. And to me, that was a scary thing about interviewing in tech, is that I will never know until I actually experience it. And I know there are some horror stories that
Yeah.
some women are stuck with like terrible teams, but they just have to, um, look for other roles. But I feel like I'm pretty lucky that I landed in a company who care about people's, work-life balance, like um, actually caring about that. Like I hear people in the company saying like, "Oh, I gotta go pick up my kid. Oh, my kid is sick today, so I'm gonna go take the day off." Or there, it's pretty cool to see that people are sharing like what they're doing throughout the day, and they don't have to be like working 100% of the time, especially if they have a family or if they have like other life things to take care of. And I think that's pretty awesome to see as a company culture.
Yeah, like equity, like that, some employees have a family, some don't, but you're able to share your daily life and not, fear judgment or something. Like that's what it
Hmm.
really is about. Is just, am I celebrated because I'm a woman, or rather like, is it equitable and I'm treated well and the same? Like that's what makes you feel
Mhm.
comfortable. Is what. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's been amazing seeing your success on LinkedIn, and I hope for continued success as always. But I think one of the key takeaways from that conversation is, there's kind of a meme that trends. It's like, oh, if your company calls you a family, like it's
Oh yeah.
probably not a good thing. But I think on the flip side, it's like over 70% of the workforce are caregivers in some contexts. And I do think that when you see that a company has strong benefits for caregivers, that is absolutely a plus sign, because no matter what gender you are, ethnicity, like you're more likely to be a caregiver if you're working full time. That's just kind of the statistic. So it's like we all need to be in a place where we can grow, care for our loved ones, feel safe, and feel like we have sustained growth in our careers without feeling we're going to be held back because of that arbitrary thing like our gender. And so that's what we're going to aim to keep breaking down on this podcast. I don't know how successful we'll be, but we'll try. Uh, I think there's no magic answer, but I do think that putting your best foot forward, advocating for yourself, healing your past self, healing your imposter syndrome, recognizing that you can succeed. And I think another key thing that you said, Vanessa, was that you set a plan so that you will succeed. It wasn't a question of,
That's awesome.
well, maybe I'll succeed, maybe I won't. It's like, no, this is how I will succeed. So, and that's very hard to do these days, especially with how hard it is and the discrimination we can receive as women. But I truly believe, and I believe, the proof is in your pudding, so to speak. If you persevere, if you surround yourself with the right people, and you will eventually get that opportunity. It's extremely hard right now, but hopefully, we'll start to see things continue to turn around more in favor of candidates, which when we see that markets favor candidates, we see that they also favor diverse candidates as well. And that's what we want. So with that, I guess we'll call it a wrap. But thank you again so much for joining. Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Vanessa. And have a lovely rest of your evening. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you. It's
tuning
been
in.
good.